Do you guys ever notice that I have the habit of repeating myself sometimes? Like sometimes I'll say the same thing, the same sentence twice. And I always wondered why I did that. Like, why did I have that habit of repeating myself? And a very lovely therapist that I had many years ago told me it was because, well, your parents never listened to you. They never listened. So you had to repeat yourself a lot. As a child, I'm like, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I can't think of two people who never knew me. Never, ever knew me. And that's sad. That's one of those uncomfortable truths that you encounter when you awaken. A spiritually awakened person is going to enjoy and almost seek out being wrong about something. Because, our beliefs and our opinions, we can get really screwed up in our head about stuff. I love being wrong. I love being wrong because I love the truth. I know that truth makes life easier. So I naturally gravitate towards wanting to live in truth. And I'm going through a phase in my life where I want to hear from experts. I want to hear from people who know what they're talking about. I want to read books. I used to love reading biographies and all sorts of books, but when YouTube came around, I kind of stopped reading books so much, and I started listening to videos. Like, it used to be really hard to make a YouTube video. It used to be difficult. Now it's easier than ever. It's easier than ever to make a YouTube video. I mean, you can have somebody who doesn't really know much about anything talk about things as if they know about them. It's wild. And I noticed this phenomena with the stuff that Whitney Webb was talking about. Like, Whitney doesn't have a whole lot of wisdom or life experience to be able to say the things that she says. And it's a sort of a midwittery. Like, if Whitney is flat out wrong about so much of the stuff that she talks about, especially in regards to Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, but other people repeat that because Whitney said it. So we have to be clear about how we speak, and we have to be clear about what we say, because if we put out wrong information, what does that mean? That makes us liars. And I'm not going to say that everything that I've said has been right, but I've been ever more careful to say, this is my opinion, this is my belief, this is how I see it, this is my perspective. I talk about being a shaman. This is how I see the world. So today we're going to talk about being wrong, and being wrong being a superpower, and how to be wrong without having a complete come apart. Are you ready for this episode of the Shaman Patrick Show? Let's go.
He was once a storm in human form, sharp tongue, cold soul, heart worn and torn, living like a ghost who missed his grave till the spirit sang out and called him brave. He got rewired by the great unknown, heard the call like a dial tone to the bone. So pull up a chair, enjoy the glow. This is the Shaman Patrick Show.
I really don't like telling personal stories. I don't. But I think in this day and age, I think it's ever more beneficial to explain how we arrive at certain conclusions through life experience. Not necessarily reading them in books, but how we came to understand certain things. So I want to tell you, I used to be a web developer, a programmer, and people used to take me to dinner to pick my brain about things. Like, businessmen would hire me to help them with presentations and sales pitches. Like, I used to work for a company where I would go with sales guys to provide them with technical answers for their sales presentations for their clients. So yeah, I've worked in corporate America. I used to fly all the time for my job, and I That's why I really don't like flying all that much now. But so people used to ask me lots of questions because I had knowledge of something that they wanted to know. And so having this knowledge and this wisdom that could benefit other people, people would ask me questions all the time about this, about that, about that, about this. But something happened, and I get very few questions now, very few questions. Did I somehow get stupider? Did all of that knowledge and wisdom just go away? Or did something more supernatural happen? So I was talking with my husband this morning about, isn't it weird that we just don't get questions? He's almost 9 years sober. I'm 7 years sober. We wrote a book about the ego. We've produced several oracle decks. I've made thousands and thousands of hours of content based around spirituality and shamanism. I don't think I'm getting stupider. I don't think I'm getting dumber. I think I'm becoming a wonderful resource for anybody interested in spirituality, sobriety, and just basic life shit. I mean, I'm 53. I'm stepping into my elder role. We need more elders. Last year, somebody challenged me and said, Patrick, you need to step into your elder role. We need elders. I didn't necessarily want to do it, but I did it. Merrick and I both did it. But so I was trying to pinpoint when I shifted from being this smart person that people wanted to talk to for answers. Like, when did that stop? And I was like, oh, it was when I got my DUI and I had to get sober. And I'm like, could that be it? Could it be, because getting a DUI will break your ego, man. I had to be in jail for a few days. That was rough. Ironically, that's where I learned about physical fitness. There was a guy in there. We were all in suicide vests. If you don't know what those suicide vests are, they put you in vests so that you can't hurt yourself, but they don't fit very well. They're falling off. But I was in this cell with this guy. There were several of us in there, and he had a really hot body, and I just asked him a question. I said, how did you get that hot body? And he goes, I just work out. And I'm like, that's pretty damn simple. And he goes, it is. If you want a hot body, just work out. And so my first year of recovery, I worked out and I got in really great shape. I don't know if my body was hot or not, but that's where I learned that physical fitness was easy, that people who had really nice bodies, it wasn't like rocket science or anything. It was just, oh, you just work out. You want to build your chest, do push-ups. You want to lose weight, do cardio. It's like trying to overcomplicate things. But I enjoyed that first year of my first stab at sobriety, where I just focused on going to classes, going to meetings. I couldn't drive, so I walked everywhere, and being at the gym. I mean, what a wonderful experience that was. But I do think that experience put me in a different category, spiritually, emotionally, and maybe even intellectually, because during that year, I came to understand something about myself and something about human nature that only someone recovering from an addiction or alcoholism will understand. It doesn't make me special or unique, but anyone who does shadow work will see the same thing, that we're all pretty much the same, and that until we realize it, we're all liars. We all try to get away with stuff. Very few people have integrity. Very few people are people of their word. People say what they don't mean, and they don't mean what they say. It's kind of an epidemic. But I do think that that was like that defining moment. After I got that DUI, and people might say that it was because I got a DUI that nobody wanted to work with me or hang out with me ever again. But you know what? When there were people who didn't know about that, it wasn't something I made public or known. I told people that I was living in Evansville with my parents. I didn't tell people that all this shit was going on with me. Anyway, so, but I did start to notice that my thirst for knowledge about myself really kicked off in that year. And I've been a lifelong student. I've definitely been a lifelong student, and having deep conversations with my husband. We were both raised in similar families. Lots of alcohol use, lots of infidelity, lots of lying. And so there was this sort of, in both of our households, which both of our families don't really like us talking about this, but it's such an integral part to what we're talking about right now. They would tell you that this was going on too. Everybody knew it was going on. It's so crazy. So anyway, Merrick and I were like, why would we want to know truth so much? Like, why would we be so interested in truth? And it's because we both lived in houses where our parents tried to hide things from us, whether it was for our own good or our own protection. That's never a good way or a reason to keep the truth from somebody. But they wanted to cover things up. I know in my family, my parents were becoming more and more poor, having gone from somewhat well-off farm owners to encroaching deeper and deeper and deeper into almost poverty. And they kept trying to cover it up. My mom kept getting credit cards to pay for things, and credit cards and loans and credit cards, and eventually having to sell the house and move into an apartment. But they tried to cover all that up. So that's alcoholism. That's dry drunkenness. My mom was also on Xanax. So she was off in La La Land most of her adult life. A fact that when I try to tell other people about it, they're like, your mother was not addicted to Xanax. And I'm like, well, if you take Xanax for 2 weeks, you become physically addicted to it. So how long did she take it? 20 years. So you can be addicted to a substance. I mean, I'm addicted to caffeine. It's just, those are just facts. Those are just the facts. But, if somebody is ashamed of something, then they don't have to be ashamed of it. I would like to say this about, both Merrick's family and my family. They are ashamed of things that they did. And I constantly told both of them, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I don't hold you responsible for anything. No. You're a human being just like me, honey. You're a human being just like me. But the fact that my family was so wild goose chases, you know what I mean? Like you'll never know the truth. Eventually, it got to the point where I was not allowed to talk to my sisters or my nephews. It all had to go through my father. And if I called my sister would call my father. And I would never get phone calls back from these people, but my father would call and say, what do you want to talk to your sister about? So the narcissistic, alcoholic, dry drunk parent is a trope. It's a trope. Like, if you're not talking to your brothers or sisters or anybody else in your family, it's because everybody is siloed away from each other. And you're not supposed to know the truth about something. You're not supposed to know the truth about something. Like in my case, I suspect that somebody diddled me, whether it was an uncle or maybe even my dad. I don't really even care anymore. But to protect that person, I have to be excised from I'm not allowed to talk to anybody else. Otherwise, somebody might find out the truth. But see, I don't even care. I don't want vengeance or retribution or anything like that. I've healed from that long ago. But at some point you're like, can we just start being honest with each other? You can be wrong about something. So I'm telling you all of that to notice or to understand that when you do start to spiritually awaken, when you do start to change, when you do start to get more interested in the truth, it might make people feel some type of way. There's nothing you could be, anyone out there needs to be ashamed of at all. I think it's hilarious when people tell me that I'm judging them and I'm like, shit, bitch, I used to do meth. Like, come on. Own your shit and know your shit. Own it. Yeah, fuck yeah, I used to do meth. I used to do a lot of horrible things. I don't feel ashamed of them. No one needs to be ashamed of stuff that they do when they're unconscious. And that's another thing. Let the unconscious people off the hook. Let them off the hook, because why? You want to be let off the hook, don't you? Have you done something that you want to be let off the hook about? Well, you got to let other people off the hook. You do. You're going to have to. This includes governments, political leaders, most of the things that are out there in the world are not even true. People are upset about things that aren't even true. It's kind of crazy. It is crazy. But there's something that we do need to talk about. It's about this age of instant access. For centuries, wisdom was gated. If you wanted access to higher truths, you had to dedicate your life to a monastery, be initiated into mystery schools, or hold the privilege of royalty. Information was earned through devotion, discipline, and initiation. Now we live in a world where advanced spiritual teachings can appear in your feed between a cat video and an ad for sneakers. With a single click, you can encounter ideas that once took decades to approach. You can accidentally stumble upon truths you aren't ready to live. Does this make the teachings wrong? No. It may simply mean you are still an acolyte, a beginner, standing at the doorway. Knowledge comes instantly, but wisdom still takes time. You must integrate, digest, and embody what you learn. This is where being wrong becomes essential. So if ask the people that you talk to or listen to, how comfortable are they? How comfortable are they with being wrong? Do they enjoy being wrong? Do they like being wrong? The sad irony is, with the more you know, the less you know. I talk about that later in this presentation. But you know, when I first had my spiritual awakening, I thought I was an expert on it. I did, and I was in such a bad state. Okay. I can't even tell you how bad it was. Like, I had to awaken or die. Essentially, it was a life or death situation. I had to rely on God. Like, I was in a very bad state. I was living in an apartment that I couldn't afford. I was drinking heavily. I had a computer. I was doing drugs. And due to all of that, I didn't have a whole lot of real world support. It was pretty desperate. It was a devastating time. So I did not have a spiritual awakening and necessarily have a lot of comfort around me. And I think this is important to say because, you know, let's say that I was living in an apartment that I could afford. Let's say that I had enough money to be able to buy food and do all these things. Let's say that was going on. I could have had my awakening and gone on without going any deeper or going any further. I could have had the near-death experience, and I, you know, even I think Eckhart had a house to live in. I think Eckhart had a house that he rented out for people when his income was low. Like, I didn't have any security like that at all. And I'm not saying that what happened with Eckhart was easier on him. Awakening is not easy on anybody, but I was in a desperate financial situation, a desperate social situation. And I also had that addiction and alcoholism going on. So when I awakened, it was in a place where I would be more open to understanding these teachings and concepts because I had to save my life. Like, it was very clear that the only way to ever be abundant again, to be comfortable again, to be secure again, was to actually go through the whole thing, including dalliances with the spiritual ego and getting sober and learning how to open up and be wrong, essentially. So I'm not doing spiritual one-upmanship here either. You know, spiritual awakening is hard for everybody. But you know, it does influence your worldview. If you have lived a life where you've never known where your next meal is coming from, if you've never been homeless, if you've never been sober, broke, or single, your spiritual awakening might be kind of stuck in a phase where you think you might have something figured out. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I'm saying there's a deeper layer to that. There's a deeper understanding that can be gained through having to drag yourself out of the mud and go through the ruined reputation, the petty tyrants, the gauntlet of that stuff, surviving things that would normally kill people unless there's a spiritual divine guiding force. Like, through these experiences, I was shown exactly who I was as a divine being in a human body, having a human experience that I chose to have. And that came through years and years of dedicated study, experience, and willingness to be wrong about almost everything. And so sometimes I'll encounter people who have had kind of a different awakening experience, and it was kind of smooth. But also the spiritual ego usually locks in and doesn't let go. And I think many spiritual teachers that you might hear from on YouTube might be stuck in this spiritual ego thing. I'm just saying, because they're talking about fear, they're fear mongering. They make it look simple and easy, and all you have to do is this, this, and this, and it is simple and easy. But before you get to that point, there's there's deconstruction, there's shadow work, there's all these things. So people can stumble upon spiritual topics that they're not ready for. You see this in comment sections on Abraham videos, or the videos about AI or Peter Thiel. You see this sort of ignorance, this willful ignorance in all these videos. Like on videos from Abraham Hicks, people say that she's blaming victims, or that they're victim blaming. And these people just kind of seem hung up in this. And I don't see many spiritual teachers out there saying, hey, let's free you from this. Let's loosen you out of this, this misconception or understanding of these deep spiritual topics. Like I said in the last slide, wisdom was gated. If you wanted access to higher truths, you had to dedicate your life to a monastery, be initiated into mystery schools, or hold the privilege of royalty. Information was earned through devotion, discipline, and initiation. So if you are not devoted, if you are not disciplined, and you haven't had that initiation, whether through a drug addiction or a tragedy or something that would initiate you, you're not going to understand these deeper truths. And I'm sorry to tell you that. Discipline is a huge part of our spiritual practice. We get up at 4, we go to the gym, we do service work, we go to meetings. You have to be disciplined to get access to those higher truths. So that's why we lean so heavily on the teachings and away from necessarily opinions and beliefs. just yesterday, somebody left a comment on my religion and religion not being reality video. And they said that they, when I said religion is not reality, but I'm a shaman, they clicked off because obviously I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay. Okay. But many of these spiritual teachings don't rely on your beliefs at all. They're spiritual practices. A shaman is essentially a cross between a scientist and a priest and a monk. There's lots of study involved. There's lots of practice involved. And shamanism is about eradicating false beliefs. So if you've got some false beliefs stuck in you, the knee-jerk reaction is to say that the teachings are wrong, that the teachings are flawed. And I like to encourage people, if you really want to understand a spiritual teaching, approach it as if it's true, and you're simply trying to hear it. I don't know why people feel the need to poke holes in spiritual teachings. I got this way with Eckhart. Because at first I rejected A New Earth. I thought it was stupid. I even did that with A Course in Miracles. But also, I had to get sober until I could really read that book, because the ego was going to read that book and then say it's nonsense and that it doesn't work and it doesn't make sense. But eventually I got to the point where, okay, this book had to be written and it had to be edited, and then it had to go through typesetting. And at some point, enough people had looked at it and been benefited by it that it was cleared for publication. And then it went on to change millions of people's lives. So why wouldn't I be able to access that as well? Like, why wouldn't I be able to receive a benefit from that book as well? If it had helped other people understand the ego and the pain body, why would it not help me? So understanding that we all have an ego that we grapple with, we all have a pain body. No one is exempt from doing this work if they want to truly awaken. Like it's a link in the chain that spiritual awakening is realizing that you're not who you thought you were. That's the spiritual awakening. You realize that you're wrong about everything. And unless you're in that phase of understanding that you might be wrong about everything, have you really even awakened? If you're still afraid of things, if you're still arguing with people, are you really awakened? And you might be wrong about that. An awakened person will be okay with being wrong and won't have a come apart. I'm wrong many times during the day. And whenever I'm wrong, I'm like, now I'm learning something new. Study. What are you studying? What are you working on? But please understand that you can stumble across something that you're not ready for. It doesn't make the teaching wrong. It just means that you're not ready for it, because you're just going to keep moving up the levels. You're going to peel back even more and more layers. And if you have devoted your life to this, like I've devoted my life to being a shaman and awakening. It's not a part-time thing. Ask my husband. The shamanism starts when I wake up in the morning. Like I woke up at 2 a.m. this morning, ready to study, ready to work, ready to do, ready to learn, ready to grow. Most importantly, ready to be wrong. To be right about anything of value, you must first be wrong about it. There is no shortcut. Wrongness is the soil in which clarity grows. At the shallowest level of knowledge, you feel certain. But as you go deeper, the ground shakes and you realize how much you don't know. The collapse of certainty is not failure, it's progress. Every spiritual awakening begins with the shocking realization, I have been wrong about everything. To continue awakening, you must make peace with being wrong again and again. Wrongness is not the opposite of truth. It is the path that leads to it. And so if you can't handle being wrong about anything, you're not awakening. In a video about religion, I talk about how people think that Trump is a Nazi, which is ludicrous if you really think about it. But they truly believe this. You cannot give them facts or evidence to the contrary because it's based on a flawed premise. In this book, The Technological Republic, which I am learning so much by reading this book. I wanted to know if he was evil, if he was if his co-CEO Peter Thiel was an antichrist. But in this book, he explains how the American education system has been dismantled to the point that even like almost everyone in Silicon Valley doesn't even understand the country that they live in. That in higher education, there has been a systemic, I'm going to use that word, a systemic problem that they have been taking away information about how America came to be. They've gotten rid of Western civilization courses. They don't study that stuff anymore. And so you have people who are graduating from college that don't understand America or don't even understand why a country would need a military. They just don't get it. And these people are very wealthy. They're the elites. And I'm not talking about the elites like Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and Elon Musk and those elites. I'm talking about the elites, the college educated dumbasses who think that they're better than other people, that they think that they know stuff. But have you talked to a college educated person or somebody fresh out of college today? They are indoctrinated to the point that they don't even have any original thoughts, beliefs, or opinions at all. They've been completely subjugated by ideology. And, shamanism is about removing those ideologies. Is Trump really a Nazi? And this is how you can tell that people have been indoctrinated, because they think that a Nazi could get elected. Like here's the thing. In our democratic system of government, Donald Trump got elected by the people. That's a democracy. He didn't. There's no way to get elected. You have to be elected or installed. Joe Biden got elected. Now, whether or not there was some fuckery about that, Joe Biden got elected. But when Joe Biden got elected, it was like, well, we got to deal with this person for the next few years. When Donald Trump got elected, well, we got to deal with him for the next few years. But believing he's a Nazi? Are you insane? And so it's very hard to talk to people who think they're right when they're absolutely, provably wrong. It's very hard to talk to people who need to be right. They are not good in conversations. Let me tell you that, because you just end up having a one-sided conversation. Someone else commented the other day that these days you almost kind of have to feel people out so that they won't have a complete come apart. If you were to say something like, there's only two genders, or I'm not a Marxist revolution. That's what I usually say to people now. Like, oh, honey, I'm not a Marxist revolutionary. But you do have to feel people out these days, because there's so many people who have been brainwashed and indoctrinated and are on Mount Stupid, essentially, like not really knowing much about the world or the country that they live in, and yet taking on this air of I'm right. I have to be right. If you have to be right about something, you're gonna want to be wrong first. If you need Trump to be a Nazi, you're gonna have to go into understanding the Nazi party. You're gonna have to go into how elections work. You're gonna have to go into civics, government. You're gonna have to do all that research. If you need to have that opinion, you're gonna have to know what you're talking about. That's what I do. If I have an opinion on something, I gotta do the work. I can't expect other people to just believe me. And there are some things that I don't have an opinion on because I don't want to do the work to have an opinion on it. Okay, so the ego cannot bear to be wrong. The only real enemy here is the ego. The ego equates being wrong with death. It will argue, double down, sabotage, and distort reality rather than admit error. When someone insists on always being right, it isn't their higher self speaking, it's their ego clinging to survival. Ironically, the ego is wrong about everything. Its entire foundation is a distortion built on fear and separation. By assuming you're wrong somewhere, you bypass the ego's trap and leave space for genuine growth. Yeah, that needing to be right is definitely an ego trap. Definitely, definitely, definitely. And so one simple way, hey, let me share something with you. We wrote a book about it. This is pretty much a book of ego traps, and also how to ignore people who are overtaken or are still in ego consciousness. You can literally ignore people who have a conditioned mind. You can just ignore them whole cloth. It's fun. If you know somebody is wrong about something, you can ignore them. You don't have to do what I did and try to help people realize that they're wrong. You can't really do that. You could withdraw. This is a really great book that helps people understand those machinations of ego and move beyond them. If you would like a copy of this book, please check out our website at concreteshamans.com. Get it, read it, and wake the fuck up. So being wrong is a great way to push through those ego things. And, there are people who claim that they're no longer dealing with ego stuff. But at the same time, if you tell them the truth about something or they disagree with you about something, they'll have a complete come apart. Like when I disagree with somebody in my personal life, I don't disagree with people all that much because I'm not trying to prove how smart I am to people anymore. I'm not trying to prove how much I know to people anymore. I let people be wrong. And I'm like, okay, good. I shifted, y'all. I shifted. I used to feel threatened by people who needed to impress their worldview onto me. And I'm getting to the phase where I feel like I'm just going to withdraw from news and politics and all that kind of stuff because I don't really have anybody in my life that's in that world. Like I used to have to do research on all this stuff to combat some of the cockamamie things people say. Nowadays, I just let people say cockamamie shit. It has nothing to do with me. If other people want to believe things that aren't true and get upset about things that aren't true, that's on them. That's also called insanity. And they might end up having to be institutionalized if more truth gets revealed. So the ego is pretty much the only thing going on. But see, your awakening and your desire for truth can definitely trigger other people. It doesn't trigger your own ego. It can trigger the egos of others. Some people see your self-discovery as a threat to their worldview. To protect themselves, they will make you wrong in order to feel right. They will twist reality, sabotage your progress, or even burn down their own lives just to maintain the illusion of certainty. It feels insane to watch, but it is simply the ego's desperation. The key is not to get entangled in proving yourself. Their struggle is with their own ego, not you. And this kind of thinking can get people killed. So when my mother died and I went to the funeral, my sister has grappled with drugs her whole life. She's probably still grappling with drugs. How do I know that? Because she hasn't. She and I are not talking. Why are we not talking? Do you want to know why I'm not talking to my sister? Okay. So during the funeral, she was in bad shape. Like she had that orange skin from drug use, certain types of drugs. And she was obviously not in good shape. Well, it was my mother. I was not in good shape, but she had that coming down from a few hard days, screaming, yelling. And even she admitted that she had been doing drugs. So, my husband and I offered to help her. Like, if you want to take this opportunity, well, she kept saying, I wish I could stop. I wish I could stop. I wish I could stop. She was posting on Facebook about how she couldn't stop and all this kind of stuff. So I thought it would be loving. Like I wanted to help my sister get sober. I really wanted to help her get sober. And so I told her that I would help her get into treatment, or I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was basically, you don't have to worry about a thing. We got you. I'm sober. My husband is sober. We've both been through the recovery process. I've been in treatment. Merrick has been in treatment. It's not, honey, you're going to be fine. So we thought that we were really well versed in being able to help people get sober. I mean, if I wanted to get sober, I would go to somebody who had already gotten sober. But after that funeral, my sister said, she texted me and said, "Why are you telling everybody I'm a drug addict?" And I said, "I'm not." She said, "Where are people getting the idea that I'm addicted to drugs? I'm not." And I'm like, am I talking to my sister? And I don't think that was my sister. I think that was my dad taking my sister's phone to shut this shit down. So about a year later, my sister reached out to me again, and she was in really bad shape and she wanted help. She was ready to get help. Could I help her? And I said, sure. So we went into our town and we got her into a sober living house. She didn't want to go to rehab. She didn't want to go into treatment, but she wanted to, like we said, well, a sober living house would work for you. So we spent more than a couple days on trying to arrange this for her so that all she had to do was just go to the sober living house. But my father kind of interfered with all that. I thought it was very strange. Like, this man doesn't know anything about addiction. Why is he getting in the way of my sister's recovery? Why? So he wanted her to go into this other place, and from that other place, that I thought that was crazy. Like, what? And I looked up that place and I was like, this seems like a front for something. This doesn't seem like a real recovery place. And you have to watch out for these places, because there are companies out there that will take advantage of people, because right now there's a lot of money being spent on recovery, and many people are just taking advantage of addicts and alcoholics. They will take their money and they will let them do drugs in these facilities. It's kind of a huge scandal. There's a lot of corruption in the treatment and recovery space. So I thought that was one of those places. Like, this looks like a sketch place. And my sister, I kind of knew it was a sketch place when my sister called me from that place and said, I need money for contacts. It's an emergency. I can't see. I need money for contacts. And I used those excuses for years. Everything's an emergency when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol. And I told her, I said, aren't you in rehab right now? What do you need money for? No, that's not an emergency. She got angry with me and I said, honey, I was in a mental institution. I didn't have glasses for about 2 months. You will survive. You will survive. And she got mad at me and upset. If somebody gets upset with you for not sending them $50, $60 for like really upset, it's probably for drugs. So anyway, I never heard from my sister again. I've never talked to my sister ever again. And this is because my father knew that I was sober, and I knew the truth about him, the family. I knew the truth about all of that. And if my sister were to get sober, she would also know the truth about how screwed up my family is. Enmeshed and dysfunctional families can usually only tolerate one sober person. Because if there's one sober person, then that sober person can be the problem. So I know in my family, I'm the only sober person, even though almost everybody is taking drugs to some degree. I would say most everybody in my family is an alcoholic or not, because I am. If there's one alcoholic in the family, the whole family is sick. In a similar thing in Merrick's family, like, he's the only sober one in his family, but yet can't really get through to people. Like, we're the sober ones. Wouldn't you like? But my father became an expert on addiction, and just all of a sudden, without having any experience about it. It was very strange. And something similar happened in Merrick's family. Like, his father became this expert on recovery. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. How did you guys become such experts on recovery and health and healing and spirituality? I used to tell this joke about, my aunt told me that my drinking was due to genetics because I was adopted. It had nothing to do with how I was raised or anything like that. And I said, "Oh, and now you're geneticist. Now you're a geneticist." Crazy. So I am telling a lot of personal stories here, but whatever. But especially you start to realize that there's such a thing as armchair psychology. Y'all know about armchair psychology?
Patrick, you don't understand. We need an ego. We need to do drugs. We need lots of partners. You just aren't getting it.
And I can't impress enough upon you that just by me getting sober, it was like a bomb went off in my life. Suddenly, here's the thing, like, when I realized I was an alcoholic, I knew what was wrong with me. I was just an alcoholic. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't bipolar. I wasn't schizophrenic. I was just an alcoholic. And we can do something about that. There's no cure for bipolar. There's no cure for depression. Medicine is not the cure. Medication is not the cure. But when I realized I was an alcoholic, I'm like, oh, I can do something about that. When I was learning about alcoholism, that's when people really started saying how crazy I was. I'm just an alcoholic. That's all that's going on with me. And I can do something about that. But through my friends and my family members, they started getting even more armchair psychology on me and telling me what was wrong with me. It was remarkable. So, I'm a kind of a comedian, so I kind of made this video to deal with it. It was funny to me. Know someone who's depressed, but they don't know it? Know someone who needs medication, but they say they don't? Know someone working on a novel, but you think they need to be working at Taco Bell? Now enrolling students in the Chicago Life Institutes of Technology at our new Uptown campus. Get your degree in armchair psychology, where you will be able to make a diagnosis with a course curriculum handpicked by guest celebrity student teacher Michael Lohan. Don't have time for school? You may be able to test out of much of the coursework if you can prove the following: that you've watched 80 hours of Dr. Phil, read 5 Newsweek articles on mental illness, and or know someone that is crazy but they don't know that they are crazy. If you've watched Breaking Bad or read People magazine, you might qualify for a bonus add-on drug and weight loss counselor degree, where you will be able to recommend prescription medication and meal plans for those that need it. Act now. Call 773-789-9275 for the Chicago Life Institute of Technology. We're enrolling now in the field of degrees for armchair psychology. Make your diagnosis with confidence, backed by a degree from a real school. Act today. The Chicago Life Institutes of Technology at our new Uptown campus. And that's that. And I made that video because I even set up a hotline. Like, there were rumors flying about me. There were all these rumors because I knew a lot of people when I lived in Nashville. I wouldn't say I was a popular person, but I knew a lot of people, and these rumors were flying about me. So I set up a hotline for people to ask me questions. That was that hotline that I put. Like, you can ask me questions. You don't have to just assume things about me. See, that's something that I went through. I went through that. All the gossips and the rumors and all of that stuff. You're going to have to go through that during an awakening. Like, people are going to have a lot of weird ideas about you, but you won't be able to tell them the truth about anything, because if you told them the truth about something, it would mean that they were wrong. A lot of times when we get sober, All of our friends and family have only known the sober version of us. I mean, the drunk version of us. And they can feel very confronted when we get sober because they may have relied on us being numbed out, or we were more compliant when we were using, or we were more willing to go along with some of the insanity and the bullshit. Getting sober is something that will completely transform your life. And if you are in an enmeshed family, an enmeshed system, a dysfunctional system, you will have to get out of it, because now you can see it. You can see the dysfunction clearly. But it doesn't mean that people are going to really be all that excited to be told that they are dysfunctional. You're probably not going to be able to. They're probably going to be so mad at you that they'll never want to speak to you again. So a lot of times when a sober person is not speaking or in communication with their family, it is because they see the dysfunction, they know the dysfunction, but at the same time, they're not able to be on any numbing agents. They're not on antidepressants. They're not being able to smoke a joint or drop out of the drama in that way. You know, a sober person can't really have a whole lot of drama in their life. They just can't. It's not personal. It's business. Really, no one can have a whole lot of drama in their life. But the more you start to work on yourself, the more shadow work you do, you will start to see more and more dysfunction, and it's just welcome to being wrong. And I love the fact that when certain people who were close to me, they were just repeating things that I had shared with them and pretending to know what I was talking about or know what they were talking about. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where people are going to start having to use word salads and all that kind of stuff. You know, a spiritual ego will not know how to speak direct and plain and upfront. They will need a lot of flowery language. So you can tell when someone is grappling with spiritual ego because there's a lot of word salad and things like that, because the spiritual ego doesn't want to be exposed at all. And so from a place of being sober in mind, body, and spirit, you actually see the dysfunction because you know that it's in yourself. And at some point you can look at all the dysfunction out in the world. You can be aware of it, but you do not have to get involved in it anymore, because remaining sober means discipline. You work on yourself daily, because what else are you going to do? You can't work on other people. But also, if you don't know about a subject, you can choose to not know everything. Not every subject requires your opinion. In fact, the hunger to know everything often comes from ego itself, a way to stay entrenched. In the past, spiritual teachers guided students gradually, preparing them for what they were ready to receive. Now the burden of discernment is on you. It's perfectly valid to say, I don't know, and I don't need to. This humility creates more room for truth than the loudest declarations of certainty. So I'm going to withdraw from some newsy things and some political things because I've realized it's not my business. This kind of came to a head with the Charlie Kirk death, and basically Tyler Robinson probably didn't do it. And so many different people are lying. You can't really know the truth about what's going on with that at all. And I realized that's probably not my business. Could be due to international intrigue or spy versus spy or something. It has nothing to do with me. I'm going to withdraw from that. I mean, I like listening to that stuff sometimes, but it's usually like, wow, this is so crazy. This is wild. How did this happen? This is wild. So definitely the Charlie Kirk thing was for me like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. This is not my business. And what is my business? What am I focused on right now? What can I really do about any of this at all? And so I'm going to be withdrawing from politicsy, newsy things because I don't have anybody in my life that's really interested in that stuff anymore. I don't really have to know that much about it in order to defend myself against some craziness. Like these days, if somebody tells me that Trump is a Nazi, I'm probably just going to laugh, or I'm probably just going to say nothing and move on. It takes a lot of inner work to be able to do that, to not defend your position, to just let people have a wrong opinion or a wrong belief and just let it go. You can do that. I do that daily. I see people buying bottles of vegetable oil. Do you think I'd go up to them and knock it out of their hand? No. If you want to drink that shit or eat that shit, go right ahead. I don't. If you want to get jabbed, go right ahead. I don't. If you want to believe things and get upset about things that aren't true, go right ahead. I'm not. I don't like getting upset about things at all, really. But you can choose not to know things, and it is very freeing when you're like, oh, how much do I really need to know? Very little. I know how to make biscuits without needing a recipe, which I will make. I'll make some biscuits today. It's 5:43 in the morning. I'm gonna pause here and go make some biscuits. But you don't have to know everything, and in fact, you can tell how far you are in your awakening process if you can say, that has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me at all. And I'm also starting to realize why people start cults in the first place. But I'm not starting a cult here. Don't forget, we have a cult-free guarantee, your peace of mind guaranteed. And when I say that, it's like, I know that there's nothing to be afraid of with AI, but yet people want to tell me to be afraid of AI. And I'm like, I've been using AI since 2022, and I've only ever seen it as a tool. I don't think AI can do what you think it can do. I don't think you know enough about software and computers and how it all works. I think it's a fantasy. Real life is not the movies. Something like Skynet would require so many systems to be able to pull off. And do you know? Hey, let me tell you this. When your computer messes up, what do? You have to reboot it. When your phone gets a little screwy, what do? You have to reboot it. Now, imagine all of the robots, all of the systems, all of the things that would have to work flawlessly, all of them. If there's one little thing that is not redundant in that system, it will fail. So I think you're thinking that computers and software is more powerful than it actually is. It's not that powerful. And you can ignore the fear mongering about that. Some people think that technology is going to control them. And I think that people who think that technology is going to control them are already controlled by technology. I don't think you're going to be able to get through to people and see how free they actually are. Literally, you can put down your phone. You can turn the electricity off to your house. You can unplug things. For now, you don't have to be connected to the internet to have a life. So now I'm going to teach you something about learning through error. If you want to become truly right about something, you must walk through wrongness deliberately. Here's how to engage that process without losing your mind. Research deeply. Seek out people who dedicated their lives to the subject. Priests, monks, theologians, scientists, true practitioners, not the low-level interpreters. And you got to be careful with academia. James Lindsay did this wonderful prank where he came up with the most ludicrous educational papers and got these dumbass things peer reviewed by other academics. And they actually exposed that a lot of the stuff that comes out of academia is wrong or flawed, or you got to put, I know it's sad. I wish it wasn't this way. I think it's very sad that we cannot look up to scholars or doctors or anyone that's been indoctrinated. Like the saddest thing is to not being able to trust a doctor anymore. Like when I learned that doctors that come out of medical school, half of the information they've learned is already outdated. When I learned that. And then I also learned that generally the only continuing education that a doctor receives is through big pharma. And also doctors are not taught to really think critically. I have a really good PCP. She does research. She looks things up. I have a conversation with my doctor. But then again, sometimes I have to tell her, like, hey, I'm a healthy person. I watch what I put in my body, and she wants me to go on medication. Like she keeps trying to push medications on me. And I'm like, I don't want to take, let's see if I can figure out how to address this through diet or exercise without having to take a pill. She knows that about me. She knows that I'm not willing to inject weird substances in my body because I am a former addict. We don't do that anymore. The sober person is really going to say, do I need to take this anymore? So I do think it's sad that we can't trust experts, scientists, and all of that stuff. There's a sadness in that, but then it's become ever more important for you to have the dedication and the discipline to want to know the truth about things. And in order to know the truth about things, you're going to have to be wrong about something, because so many people have told me flat out wrong information in the past decade that I'm like, oh my God. And the conviction with which they say these things, it's like shocking. People who have no idea about recovery will just tell me things about getting sober and alcoholism and drugs without ever having gone. It blows my mind. It boggles my mind. I don't understand it. I don't know if I would have that. There's some things that I'm not an expert on, and I have a little bit of I'm not as confident in those things. But as far as recovery and ego stuff, I'm very confident in my wisdom and knowledge level on that stuff. But people will say these wrong things without ever doing any research or understanding on it whatsoever. It boggles my mind. I don't know how people can live that way, honestly, like stating things so confidently without questioning if it's true or not. It's freaky. So test yourself by teaching. When you try to explain a concept, you'll quickly see where you're shaky. My husband asked me, before he became my husband, he asked me about the pain body, and I had to hit the books. And when he was going through his ego dissolution process, I had to step up and learn all about the ego. That's why we're a weird match, because he wanted to know things and I had to teach him, and he wanted to know those things from me. And so I had to hit the books. I don't think that I would be such a good explainer of this stuff if I didn't have to help people in my personal life. Merrick was very receptive to being taught. He was very receptive. And then again, I was just teaching him from the book. I was just teaching him from a new earth. And also we were able to have experiences with our own egos. And both of us know that's why our work is a little different, because we've both had real world experiences with these egos. And then conversely, there were people in my life who weren't receptive, who wanted to prove me wrong about this stuff, and got very hostile and angry and somewhat sabotagey when I was just trying to teach them what I had already learned and what I had already taught to dozens, if not hundreds of other people. I've given classes on ego. Have you given a class on the ego? Do you know what happens when you teach the ego to other people? But people who've never taught a class on ego can somehow be experts on it. I don't think you can truly be an expert on anything without practicing it. Like an instrument, it's like playing an instrument, working on ego issues and shadow work. It's a practice, and you practice it daily. So here we go with this: admit mistakes openly. Error is not weakness. It's how understanding sharpens. If you're mistaken about something, you can say, oh, I was mistaken about that. And there's no harm. Like people tell me that they were wrong sometimes. I'm like, oh, honey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If somebody tells me they were not honest with me, I'm like, sure, babe, whatever. That's okay. I used to lie a lot too. It's not a big deal. You can openly admit your mistakes. But both Merrick and I were raised in households where if you admitted a mistake, they would jump on you. They would jump on you. So as a survival mechanism, we learned growing up to not admit mistakes, not admit where we were wrong, not admit where we screwed up, because people would take that opportunity to punish us or make fun of us for making a mistake. And that's how you get involved in these really sick family systems, because nobody can ever admit that they made a mistake. And then people just end up delusional that way. If you can't admit that you ever made a mistake, you're delusional. My mother only admitted to making one mistake, and it was I thought she was going to die. She just was like, I made a mistake. All right. I was like, man, y'all are cuckoo. If you can't admit you made a mistake without screaming. So here's another thing. Stay humble in mystery. The more you learn, the more vast the unknown becomes. This is the paradox. The only way to arrive at certainty is to be dismantled by uncertainty. You want to write that down? The only way to arrive at certainty is to be dismantled by uncertainty. And you know what? There's a lot of things that are going to happen to you in your life and out in the world that you're never going to be certain about. Like our lovely cat Cheddar is gone right now. He wanted to go outside on Sunday morning and he didn't come back. Around noontime, we were like, where is he? And, you know, he's been gone before. He goes on adventures sometimes. He's a country cat. We could not keep him inside. He was very unhappy staying inside. So we granted him his freedom to go outside. We're not his captors. He's not our pet. We treated him as an equal. And so right now we're not certain what happened to him. We don't know if he's dead or alive or what happened. I just know that I saw him leave Sunday morning. He wanted to go outside and I haven't seen him since. I hope he's okay. I hope he comes back, but we may never ever be certain about what happened to Cheddar. So we're using this opportunity as to really lean into that uncertainty. And it's teaching us a lovely lesson in patience. Yes, we have both cried. We have both cried. We're not monsters, but at the same time, we always treated Cheddar as his own man. We always treated him with respect. We always treated him like you're a kitty cat and you probably know what's best for you than we do. So I trust that Cheddar he's in a better place. But if he doesn't come back, we'll probably be getting a new roommate. We always called Cheddar our roommate. We did. But the only way to arrive at certainty is to be dismantled by uncertainty. You know, some things are going to happen you're never going to know the truth about. You don't need to know the truth about something. But the one thing I want you to take away from this presentation is that freedom comes when you stop defending your ego's need to be right. Wrongness becomes a teacher instead of a terror. Every mistake reveals a step toward clarity. Every collapse of certainty opens the door to deeper truth. In the end, being wrong is not a failure. It's the only way to truly be right. And I want everyone to awaken. I want everyone to be able to become more conscious. I want that for you. And I know I talk about things in a way that other spiritual teachers may not talk about, but I'm not trying to be like other spiritual teachers. I'm my authentic Shaman Patrick self. So thank you for continuing to support the work we do. If you don't mind, please like and subscribe, comment or use an emoji if you've got nothing to say. Share this content with others. Thank you for watching and growing with us. And do not forget that we love you. Yes, we do.
I bit my tongue so long it turned black and blue, playing nice. I'm coughing up fire and I won't say please. They want sweet, soft, silent and small, but I ain't shrinking just to make you feel tall. You build your castle out of guilt and shame. Now you're mad, I'm torching the game. I'm not a fake ass bitch, I say what I mean. Don't do small talk, gossip or passive aggressive scenes. I'm not your yes girl backseat, play nice snitch. Nope, never been, never will be a fake ass bitch. Used to twist myself into pretty little shapes to fit your box of lies and play your high stakes fakes. But now I'm blunt force truth and designer boots, burning down your gaslight roots. You call it rude, I call it real. You're scared of truth cause it makes you feel, and ask you where it's cracking fast. Better find a meal and face your past. I'm not a fake ass bitch, I own my scars. Won't dim my shine for your broken heart. I'm not your echo shadow psychic witch. Nope, never been, never will be a fake ass bitch. You want me soft, so I won't speak. You want me sweet, so I stay weak. You want me fake, so you feel fine. But I'd rather lose you than lose my mind. Fake love, fake friends, fake peace at the bitter end. Cut the strings, no marionette. I'm real, I'm raw, and I'm not your pet. I'm not a fake ass bitch, and I won't play dumb. Don't confuse silence with being numb. This isn't my voice, my path, my glitch. Hell no, never was, never will be.